tricking my slacker coworker into sabotaging himself, a Hollywood office drama. Hey, Reddit. Buckle up, because this one's a wild ride. Picture this: I work in a boutique marketing firm in Los Angeles, smack in the middle of the city's glamorous chaos. The office is everything you'd expect from a company trying to be trendy: exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city, and a refrigerator stocked with kombucha and sparkling water. There's a foosball table no one touches, a zen room that's really just a glorified broom closet with a beanbag chair, and endless motivational posters screaming cliches like "hustle harder and dream big." But beneath the shiny veneer, it's still a corporate grind where the biggest reward for your hard work is, well, more hard work. And then there's Seth. Every office has one, but Seth was the gold standard of slackers. You know the type, always strolling in late with an iced latte in hand, wearing sunglasses indoors like he's some kind of Hollywood big shot. His excuses were as ridiculous as they were predictable. "Sorry, the 405 was brutal this morning," or "I had to take a last-minute call with a client," even though we all knew he lived 10 minutes away and probably spent his morning scrolling Instagram in bed. Seth had mastered the art of looking busy without actually doing anything. He'd lean back in his designer chair, tapping furiously at his keyboard like he was solving world hunger, but if you peeked at his screen, he'd be Googling things like best rooftop bars in LA or scrolling through TikTok. The thing about Seth, though, was that he wasn't just lazy, he was sneaky. He had this charm, this ability to make people believe he was contributing when he was really just offloading his work onto others. Most of the time, that other was me. I'd get emails with subject lines like "quick help needed," or "you're the best at this." And, like an idiot, I'd fall for it. "Hey, can you take a look at this?" he'd write. "You're just so much better at it than I am." What started as a favor quickly turned into a pattern. Seth would dump his work on me, disappear for a client lunch that lasted 2 hours, and then reappear just in time to take credit for the finished project in our team meetings. At first, I complained to my boss. I mean, this guy was clearly slacking, right? But Seth had a knack for spinning the situation in his favor. "Oh, I thought we were collaborating," he'd say with a wide-eyed look of innocence, as if I had somehow misunderstood. My boss, who was too busy dealing with higher-ups to dig deeper, would wave it off and tell us to work it out as a team. Meanwhile, Seth would shoot me a wink, as if to say, "Better luck next time, kid." The breaking point came last month. We were working on a high-stakes campaign for one of our biggest clients, a luxury brand known for being meticulous and demanding. The final report was due in 2 days, and it wasn't just a typical summary. This report needed to include detailed analytics, market insights, trend forecasting, and actionable recommendations. It was the kind of project that could make or break a client relationship. Naturally, Seth had done nothing. 2 days before the deadline, he strolled over to my desk, dumped a folder of raw data in front of me, and said, "You're a lifesaver. I know you'll make this look amazing. Thanks in advance," before disappearing into the break room. I stared at the folder, my blood boiling. This wasn't just lazy, it was irresponsible. If this report tanked, it wouldn't just reflect poorly on Seth, it would reflect poorly on the entire team. But as I sat there seething, an idea started to form. If Seth wanted me to do his work, fine, I'd do it. But I'd make sure he got exactly what he deserved. Crafting the perfect trap. The next day, during one of Seth's infamous bathroom breaks, "Seriously, does this guy have a secret side hustle selling TikToks from the stall?" I struck up a conversation. "Hey, Seth," I said casually, "are you good with Excel? You know, for these data-heavy reports we've been doing?" He leaned against my desk with that trademark smirk and said, "Nah, I've never needed to learn that stuff." "Why would I, when I've got you?" He said it like it was a compliment, as if I should be flattered. I nodded, pretending to laugh along, but inside, I was already planning my revenge. When Seth handed me the raw data for his next report, I smiled sweetly and said, "Of course, happy to help." But behind the scenes, I was crafting an Excel masterpiece of sabotage. I spent hours embedding hidden formulas, creating subtle errors that would only trip up someone who didn't know what they were doing. Totals didn't add up, percentages would change depending on which cell you clicked, and copying and pasting data caused everything to scramble. I even threw in a few conditional formatting rules that made cells randomly turn bright red or blue, just to mess with his head. It was elegant, undetectable chaos. The best part? It was all reversible if you knew Excel. But Seth? He'd once asked me how to make a box chart thingy, so I was pretty confident he was doomed. The fallout begins. Deadline day arrived, and Seth was his usual smug self. He rolled into the office around 10:30, iced latte in hand, and spent the morning regaling our coworkers with stories about some exclusive party he'd crashed in the Hollywood Hills. Meanwhile, I sat at my desk, pretending to focus on my own work while secretly counting down the minutes. Around noon, the client called. And let me tell you, they were furious. The report was a mess. Totals didn't match, graphs were incomprehensible, and half the data looked like it had been assembled by a drunk raccoon. Seth's face went pale as he stammered through excuses about software glitches and promised to fix it immediately. Watching Seth try to fix the spreadsheets was the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. Every time he thought he'd correct it, another part of the report would implode. He spent hours hunched over his desk, muttering to himself and frantically Googling phrases like, "Why is Excel changing my data?" At one point, he stormed over to me, looking like a man on the verge of a breakdown. "Hey, can you take a quick look at this? Something weird is going on." I gave him my best innocent smile and said, "Oh no. That's so strange. I've never seen Excel do that before. Maybe it's a bug. You could try reinstalling it." He stared at me, clearly panicking, but I just shrugged and went back to my own work. Sweet justice. By the end of the day, Seth had managed to cobble together a halfway decent report, but the damage was already done. The client had escalated their complaints to my boss, who was livid. The next morning, Seth was called into a meeting. The office fell into a hushed silence as he trudged past us, looking like a man walking to his own execution. He was in there for over an hour. When he finally emerged, his face was a mix of anger, humiliation, and disbelief. Word spread quickly, Seth had been put on unpaid leave for mishandling the project. As for me, I got a shout out in the team meeting for stepping up under pressure to help the client. The irony was almost too delicious to handle. I celebrated that night with a glass of wine and the deepest, most satisfying sleep I've had in months. TLDR, lazy coworker kept dumping his work on me, so I sabotaged his Excel spreadsheets with hidden formulas and watched him crash and burn when it mattered most. Justice has never tasted sweeter, especially in the cutthroat world of LA marketing. The aftermath, Seth's fallout and my victory lap. After Seth's suspension, the office was buzzing with speculation. People whispered in the break room, curious about what exactly had gone wrong with the big report. I played it cool, sticking to the narrative that there had been some kind of mysterious glitch in the spreadsheets. I tried to help him figure it out. I told my coworkers during lunch, feigning concern, but the files were just really weird. I've never seen anything like it. Everyone nodded sympathetically, grateful it wasn't a disaster to deal with. Seth's absence was a breath of fresh air. The office, once filled with his loud stories about partying with D-list celebrities or his questionable hustle tips, was suddenly quieter, more focused. Without Seth dumping his workload on me, I actually had time to catch up on my own projects. My productivity skyrocketed, and for the first time in months, I didn't dread opening my email every morning. It was glorious. But Seth wasn't completely gone. A few days into his suspension, he started reaching out to people individually, fishing for information. I got a message from him one evening that read, "Hey, just checking in. Do you think the boss is still mad? Also, any idea what happened with the spreadsheet stuff?" I stared at the message for a solid minute, debating whether to respond. Eventually, I decided to play dumb. "Oh, hey Seth. Yeah, that whole spreadsheet thing was super weird. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe the data got corrupted or something? Anyway, hope you're doing okay." He replied almost immediately, "Yeah, maybe. Thanks, though. Hope to be back soon." I couldn't help but laugh. Back soon? Not likely. The long-term fallout. As the weeks went on, it became clear that Seth's suspension wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a precursor to his inevitable downfall. Word around the office was that our boss had been reviewing Seth's performance more closely and discovered a pattern of missed deadlines. Shoddy work and an over-reliance on others, read me, to carry his weight. With the high-stakes client already furious over the botched report, Seth's golden boy charm was wearing thin. Meanwhile, my boss had started to notice my contributions. Without Seth taking credit for my work, it was obvious who the real backbone of the team was. During one team meeting, my boss actually said, "I just want to acknowledge me for stepping up and handling a lot of the heavy lifting lately. Your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed." I played it humble, but inside, I was doing mental cartwheels. And then came the big news: Seth wasn't coming back. It happened quietly, with no official announcement. One day, his name disappeared from our company directory, and his desk was cleared out. A few of us speculated about whether he'd been fired or if he'd resigned, but either way, Seth was out of the picture. A chance encounter. You'd think that would be the end of it, but life in LA has a funny way of throwing people back together. A couple of months later, I was grabbing coffee at a trendy cafe in Silver Lake when I spotted Seth sitting at a table near the window. He looked rough. Gone was the smug, polished guy I remembered. His hair was unkempt, his clothes looked a little wrinkled, and he had the tired, slightly defeated look of someone who'd been humbled by life. I debated whether to say hi, but decided against it. As I waited for my coffee, I overheard a snippet of his conversation with the person he was with, some sort of job recruiter, it seemed. Seth was explaining why he'd left our company. "It just wasn't the right fit," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "The environment was too high pressure, you know? I'm more of a big picture thinker." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Big picture thinker? Sure, Seth. Let's go with that. Reflecting on the chaos, looking back, I don't regret a thing. Was it petty to sabotage Seth's spreadsheets? Maybe. But after months of being taken advantage of, I think I earned the right to fight back. Seth was the kind of person who thrived by stepping on others, and if no one had stopped him, he would have continued to skate by while everyone else picked up the slack. Sometimes, karma just needs a little nudge. These days, work is a lot less stressful. I've been able to take on projects that actually interest me, and I've even started mentoring some of the newer hires, something I never had the bandwidth for before. I'm not saying I'm the office hero, but let's just say I haven't had to buy my own coffee in weeks. And as for Seth? Well, last I heard, he was trying to start a consulting business. Something about helping companies streamline their operations. The irony isn't lost on me. TLDR, lazy coworker kept dumping his work on me, so I sabotaged his Excel spreadsheets with hidden formulas and watched him crash and burn. He ended up suspended, then quietly let go. Now, work is better than ever, and karma did the rest.